Shabbat Shalom, friends. As the Vice President, well, before I begin, I just want to say I'm so excited to be here with all of you. What an incredible experience. This is power and powerful and sacred. I want to share a story that was recently published in the NADA Journal with you that I wrote for temple administrators. As the Vice President of Audacious Hospitality, I believe deeply that every person should have a community where they feel fully supported and unconditionally accepted. One they can count on to be there for them over the course of their lives. We are, in fact, an ever-growing and evolving people with many Jewish traditions and cultures that span the globe. While statisticians may occasionally claim that intermarriage is the cause of dwindling Jewish participation, the stories of my parents and thousands of interfaith couples, Jews of color, LGBTQ Jews, Jews with disabilities, and so many more people, many in this room and far beyond, tell a more multidimensional story. Many of us have not waned in our Jewish commitments, but instead have had our efforts to participate and join Jewish community thwarted by intentional and more often unintentional barriers. While communal change can at times seem glacial, it is embedded in our Jewish tradition that we always try. The title of this week's Torah portion, as you heard earlier, is Vayeshev, stemming from the verb to sit or to dwell. Coming from the line, quote, Jacob dwelt in the land of his father's sojournings. So many families today seek a welcoming Jewish home in which to dwell, to feel at home in their parents' and ancestors' tradition. And more today, with so many Jews by choice and Jewish adjacent and people of other faith backgrounds also bring their traditions and identities as well. I consider it part of my life's work to ensure that we make it so. This mission is a personal one, inspired by the community that took in and supported my family through triumph and tragedy. When I was 9, I wasn't much shorter than I am now, and my hair was, I think, even bigger. Awkward. My family moved to a city in Northern California where there was a very small Jewish community at the time. My parents, a young interracial and initially interfaith couple, decided that they wanted to join a congregation and be more proactive about raising their 2 young children as Jews. But unfortunately, they were turned away by not only 1, but 2 congregations. Fortunately, my parents decided they still needed the support that a congregation could provide, and that Judaism was theirs to claim. So they tried again, and on their 3rd attempt, were welcomed into a wonderfully accepting Reformed Jewish community, Sunrise Jewish Congregation in Orangevale, California. But more potential barriers quickly appeared. As recent young college graduates, they could not afford to pay the full amount of membership dues. The congregation, to my parents' great relief, confidentially offered dues relief and requested payment officially of $1. My parents agreed, handed over the $1 bill, and the rest, as you can clearly see, is history. Sunrise Jewish Congregation, now Temple Or Rishon, became my second home and the cornerstone of a wonderful childhood. We attended Shabbat services and religious school regularly. I was one of those weird kids, I think that's what Rabbi Jacobs would call me. I actually liked Hebrew school. My father took Introduction to Judaism and studied with the rabbi. My mother joined the board of directors and later served as the director of education. I was very engaged in youth group. In my senior year of high school, I served as the youth group president and social action vice president for Nifty Central West. But that wasn't all that happened in my senior year. In the fall, a careless 22-year-old in a fast Honda changed my understanding of the power of community and changed my mother's life forever. He came speeding off the New Jersey Turnpike when my mother was visiting family in northern Jersey, going 80 miles an hour in a 20-mile-an-hour zone. When he turned a sharp bend off the New Jersey Turnpike, he saw my mother's car at the traffic light, slammed on his brakes, but nonetheless crashed full speed into my mother's rental car. The airbag didn't deploy, the seat broke, and so did her cervical spine. When I learned of the horrible accident that my mother had on the East Coast, my world began spinning, and I couldn't breathe. Was she going to die? How could we survive without my mother? And my father was seemingly on his deathbed at the same time. An aggressive chemotherapy treatment was unsuccessful at that time in fighting the battle against his hepatitis C diagnosis. He was bedridden. He no longer had the personality of the father who raised me. As far as I could tell, the righteous, sweet, loving, vibrant man was already gone. It was a devastating situation, and my brother, Andrew, and I certainly were not equipped to manage it alone. My mother was the mighty, unflinching glue that held our fragile family together, and without her, we were absolutely lost. Even today, tears fill my eyes when I recall how members of our congregation, our community, were there that first night, bringing meals and groceries. By the next morning, a cadre of our dear congregational family friends and temple lay leaders established a food delivery schedule and a carpool schedule to get me to the magnet high school I attended. The story could have been drastically different were it not for the organized and loving intervention that our congregation provided. Today, I'm incredibly grateful to have both of my parents who have invisible but very real disabilities. I treasure each of our interactions because Andrew and I came deathly close to losing them both. I refuse to visualize what that storyline would be like, though when I do, I am provided with comfort knowing that our Jewish community would have been there for us. That, to me, is remarkable. It is remarkable and also already a reality in Reform congregations all throughout North America and the world. 30 years ago, our congregation embodied audacious hospitality before the concept was conceived. We embraced diverse families from nearly all Jewish denominations and backgrounds, racial and ethnic backgrounds, accommodated for disabilities, and even had an openly gay cantorial soloist, Glenn Cooper, in whose honor we made a panel for the AIDS Memorial Quilt. We had a thriving religious school despite limited funds and an enriching intergenerational community that I missed terribly when I went to college, I have to say, in which elders and youth were well acquainted. For me, the audacious element in audacious hospitality is the insistence that we do have the capacity to be courageous enough to take risks, to be more inclusive and more intentional about our diversity in all of its hues. while also not forsaking nor watering down the richness and depth that Judaism offers. Like so many people, my childhood was not without its heartache and challenges, but my Jewish community invested in my family, and this is important here, we wholeheartedly reciprocated. As a result of my family's refusal to accept rejection from some religious authorities and their commitment, my parents' commitment to engaging deeply with the synagogue and fostering an enriching Jewish home, I have inherited a tradition and extended family. I have inherited an incredibly powerful Jewish tradition and brilliant extended family. For all of these reasons, and so many more, 5,500 to be precise, I am committing my life to helping more people have access to and be embraced by this loving community. This is specifically because I know Jews have a critical and distinctive role to play in fostering a world of wholeness, justice, and compassion. Now I want to pause here for a second and say that at a glance, this is simply a story of great people within a warm Reform congregation acting with compassion, practicing inclusion, and prioritizing relationship and belonging. Yet, I know now, as a Jewish professional, just as many leaders in our Reform movement do, that while most people are good, experiences like the ones I have shared do not often magically happen on their own. Those moments are made possible and enhanced by effective, well-informed leadership. This is not to say that audacious hospitality can't organically occur, because obviously it can and it does. But if one looks deeper, many of my positive childhood encounters with the Jewish community were undergirded by not only our Reform movement's core values and trailblazing outreach work, but also by executive leaders on the local level, congregants, and many individual trailblazers who established practices and policies that cultivated these moments of connection and inclusion. It is the work of audacious hospitality to support these types of initiatives. For this reason, we developed the Audacious Hospitality Toolkit and 2 robust supplemental resource modules covering Jewish LGBTQ issues and Jewish racial and ethnic diversity. And more is coming. They're also available for download at urj.org. So now I turn to you. As leaders of the Reform movement, each of you plays a key role in cultivating a culture of inclusion and audacious hospitality. There is a lot that happens over the course of a relationship with our movement. But without your help and your professional and lay teams and fellow congregants all over North America and beyond, people may not even get through the door. So know that my colleagues and I are deeply invested in your continued and increased success. It is because of effective, courageous leaders like you that families like mine and thousands of others have a place within our remarkable community and movement. I am looking forward to continuing to collaborate with you so that this can be true for even more members of our broader Jewish extended family who have yet to connect to what I believe is a deeply meaningful, rich, and empowering network of Reform institutions and communities. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.